I will present a study about the feasts of Leviticus 23. This study aims to clarify some aspects of the text that is in Leviticus 23 and correct some wrong arguments that people use to keep pushing the feasts. Point number 1. The word moed does not mean feast. This word denotes an encounter or an appointment in a specific context, place, and time. In fact, this word comes from ya'ad, a Hebrew root which means pointing out or indicating a term or designating a place for someone, as in Jeremiah 47 verse 7. Point number 2. The phrase Mikra'e Kodesh should be translated as convocations for holiness. Point number 3. These feasts or appointed times are not Jewish as Christians say. This is not what the Hebrew texts of Leviticus 23 say. Let's look at verse 2 of this chapter. Talk to the children of Israel and tell them, "These are Jehovah's appointed times that you should proclaim as calls for holiness. These are my appointments." Leviticus 23 verse 1. Point number 4. When people see that we tell them that we are not going to celebrate the feasts, they use comments with a very derogatory tone saying, then you will return to Christianity. This kind of comments only denote one thing, that people do not understand that the holidays were given as part of the covenant of Moab, which is the Levitical covenant, which according to the book of Hebrews is no longer valid. Hebrews chapter 7 verses 11 to 12. If therefore perfection were by the Levitical priesthood, for under it the people received the law, what further need was there that another priest should rise after the order of Melchizedek, and not be called after the order of Aaron? For the priesthood being changed, there is made of necessity a change also of the law. Generally, people who say these kinds of comments do not know a couple of things. 1. The difference between the covenant of Horeb and the covenant of Moab. The covenant of Horeb was given to the children of Israel, so they keep the 10 commandments, the 10 words. The covenant of Moab was added to the Torah in addition to the covenant of Horeb. This covenant was given to Phinehas in chapter 25 of the book of Numbers. However, it is worth checking chapters 22, 23, and 24 also to check the context. 2. Torah always makes more emphasis on compassion, mercy, justice, defense of the needy and weak, righteousness, and keeping the commandments. Yeshua is the fulfillment of Hosea chapter 6 verse 6, so it is no longer necessary to keep doing sacrifices. Even the book of Hebrews says that every year the priest should go behind the veil to make atonement or covering for the people of Israel. However, this atonement was not enough to purify the interior or conscience of that person who received the atonement. Hebrews chapter 9 verses 7 to 9. But into the second went the high priest alone once every year, not without blood, which he offered for himself, and for the errors of the people, the Holy Ghost, this signifying that the way into the holiest of all was not yet made manifest, while as the first tabernacle was yet standing, which was a figure for the time then present, in which were offered both gifts and sacrifices that could not make him that did the service perfect, as pertaining to the conscience. Remember that Yom HaKippurim's sacrifice not only included the 2 goats, it also included other animals, such as a calf and a ram. Point number 5. People usually say, so now you will get rid of the Shabbat, right? The same happens for not understanding that the 10 commandments were always the main part of the Torah. These 10 commandments were given by Jehovah face to face with the people. The rest of the Torah was given through Moses. The people no longer listened to Jehovah's direct voice. All this happened for a very specific reason, because the commandments, instructions, statutes, judgments, and testimonies have an order, a place, and context of time. The Shabbat is within the 10 commandments. Check Deuteronomy chapter 5 and Exodus chapter 20, in addition to Genesis chapter 2. Therefore, we conclude that the Shabbat is higher than the rest of the feasts, and that is still standing. Point 6. Verses taken out of context or badly translated. Now let's review some of the most popular verses used by people to say that the feasts must be celebrated regardless of the context of time or place, or regardless of the purpose for which these feasts were given. Leviticus 23:14. And ye shall eat neither bread, nor parched corn, nor green ears, until the selfsame day that ye have brought an offering unto your God. It shall be a statute forever. Chukat Olam, throughout your generations in all your dwellings. The bad commercial translations have translated Chukat Olam as perpetual statute. However, the word Chukat denotes a limit, and the word Olam denotes something that is hidden or indefinite. A better translation of Chukat Olam would be hidden/indefinite time limit. These statutes are actually prophecies that are fulfilled when that time limit is reached. Let's also take into account the following. Are you saying this verse that absolutely all the feasts are a perpetual statute? That's not what the text says, right? This phrase of perpetual statute is in the context of the unleavened bread feast. In addition, we already saw that Chukat Olam does not translate as perpetual statute. We should also ask ourselves the following. Why the phrase Chukat Olam appears only in some feasts and not all the feasts? Isn't it possible that the Almighty wants to reveal to us something deeper? Would it not be good to check these patterns and start finding connections that we had not seen before? Additional question. Why the phrase for all its generations does not appear in all instructions for all the feasts? Do you notice that there is a pattern here? Why does it not appear at all the instructions about all the feasts, if it's true that all the feasts are forever and to be kept wherever you dwell? Point 7. Verses that are not taken into account. Leviticus 23:10. Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When you enter into the land which I give unto you, and shall reap the harvest thereof, then ye shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priest. Questions. Why do people who say that the feasts are forever never mention this verse at all? Why do people forget the phrase when you enter into the land? Are we going to take what suits us and leave out what is not convenient for us? Leviticus 23:11-12. And he shall wave the sheaf before the Lord to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Sabbath the priest shall wave it. And ye shall offer that day when ye wave the sheaf and he lamb without blemish of the first year for a burnt offering unto the Lord. Questions. Are you offering the sheaf in front of Jehovah as well as Leviticus brand 23? If they answer yes, then have you taken into account that the phrase in front of Jehovah means that this was offered in a very specific place in front of the tabernacle or temple? What priest receives your sheaf, your rabbi, your pastor, your morah? Priests are from Aaron's offspring line. Is the priesthood of Aaron still valid? Is the Levitical covenant still valid? Are your roes, rabbis, or pastors descendants of Aaron? Can you prove that somehow? Leviticus 23:18. And ye shall offer with the bread 7 lambs without blemish of the first year, and 1 young bullock, and 2 rams. They shall be for a burnt offering unto the Lord with their meat offering and their drink offerings, even an offering made by fire of sweet savor unto the Lord. Leviticus 23:19. Then ye shall sacrifice 1 kid of the goats for a sin offering, and 2 lambs of the first year for a sacrifice of peace offerings. Leviticus 23:25. Ye shall do no servile work therein, but ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. Leviticus 23:36. 7 days ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. On the 8th day shall be an holy convocation unto you. And ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a solemn assembly, and ye shall do no servile work therein. Leviticus 23:37. These are the feasts of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, to offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord, a burnt offering, and a meat offering, a sacrifice and drink offerings, everything upon his day. Leviticus 23:39. Also in the 15th day of the 7th month, when ye have gathered in the fruit of the land, ye shall keep a feast unto the Lord 7 days. On the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath. Questions. Are you also offering this calf without defect along with the 2 rams? What bronze altar are you using to do the sacrifices? Do you have a bronze altar in your congregations? Were you allowed to replicate those objects from the temple and have them anywhere you want? If you say you are no longer making these sacrifices, then I also ask you, why are you cherry-picking verses from this chapter, taking what is convenient and leaving out what is not convenient? Who are you giving that goat as a peace offering? Do you harvest the fruit of the earth as the instruction of verse 39 says, or did you also forget to do this? Additional question, how do you read Hosea 6:6 and Micah 6:6-8? Point 8. Arguments out of context or spiritual interpretations out of context. Argument 1. We are the land of Israel. If you are the land of Israel, can I also build houses over you? Can you plant vineyards over you? What do the prophecies about the land of Israel say? Be careful with those spiritual interpretations that only take concepts out of their context. Argument 2. We are the temple. What's the context of this phrase? Did Paul say it in a context where he told them that they should celebrate the feasts? Where is this famous verse that people take out of context? Let Paul himself be the one who responds. 1 Corinthians 3:16-17. Know ye not that ye, plural, are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? If any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. For the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are. In summary, you are collectively the temple. First, Paul says that the congregation is collectively the temple. What context did Paul express this verse? Paul was talking about looking at how each one builds, and that the foundation is Yeshua the Messiah. The context indicates that Paul was urging them to build correctly. Even Paul compares himself with an expert architect. Paul also compares gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, and litter to people's works in verse 14 of this chapter. Paul at no time uses this analogy of the collective temple to invite believers to keep the feasts. Argument 3. Yeshua is the temple, then I can celebrate them wherever and whenever you want. So are we going to mix Melchizedek's priesthood with the Levitic priesthood? Are we going to mix the sacrifices, oblations, and offerings with the Melchizedek priesthood? Doesn't the book of Hebrews make clear, rather than the Levitican priesthood was just a shadow of Melchizedek's priesthood? Does not the book of Hebrews speak of a change in the priesthood? Argument 4. The Jews celebrate the holidays, and we have to imitate them because they are the older brother, and they know more than us. Questions. In which part of the Torah or the Bible in general says that we must imitate the Jews? In which part of the Bible says that the Jews know more about the Bible than others? Do you remember how Yeshua criticized the Judeo-Chaldean traditions in the time of the Pharisees and the Sadducees? Question. Is the leaven of malice something physical or is it something spiritual? Is Paul literally talking about a leaven of malice, or is it possible that he is doing a metaphor or analogy like Yeshua did about the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees? Was Yeshua telling his apostles to celebrate the unleavened bread feast? Let's see what 1 Corinthians 5 says in context. Paul begins by talking about a case of fornication among the congregation of Corinth. Subsequently, Paul says that he has already judged that act in the Spirit, as if he were present in that place. We are going to the verses that people usually use to defend this argument, number 5, together with the rest of the chapter to make more comments about it. 1 Corinthians 5, 6-8. Your glorying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump? Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even Christ our Passover is sacrificed for us. Therefore let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. Paul relates the boasting to leaven in verses 6 and 7. Paul also speaks of a transformation so that we are a new lump. That is not something that refers specifically to the unleavened bread feast, but Paul is taking the symbology of the Torah to explain a concept in the spiritual realm. In fact, Paul also uses those sacrifices where the animal's skin was removed to explain that we must strip ourselves of the old clothes rags and strip ourselves of the old nature too. He's not telling you to get naked or to remove the skin from an animal, right? Paul also says that our Passover is Yeshua. Does it make sense to continue celebrating Passover using the old ways, even when Paul just told us to be a new lump? Paul also compares unleavened bread with sincerity and truth. Now let's see what the rest of the context says. 1 Corinthians 5, 9-12. I wrote unto you in an epistle not to company with fornicators, yet not altogether with the fornicators of this world, or with the covetous, or extortioners, or with idolaters. For then must ye needs go out of the world. But now I have written unto you not to keep company. If any man that is called a brother be a fornicator, or covetous, or an idolater, or a railer, or a drunkard, or an extortioner, with such an one know not to eat. For what have I to do to judge them also that are without? Do not ye judge them that are within, but them that are without God judgeth. Therefore put away from among yourselves that wicked person. Paul culminates the chapter by saying that they should remove this person mentioned in verse 1 from the congregation. Isn't Paul supposed to be talking about a feast? No, Paul was really talking about removing the leaven of malice. In this case, judging by the context, the person who said he was a brother and who was in a clear error had to be removed, just as the leaven was removed from the houses for the feast of unleavened bread. Paul is not urging them to keep a feast, but asks them to remove everything that contaminates them spiritually, especially if he is a person who says he is a brother. Additional questions. If the feasts are supposed to be kept wherever you live, then why did Daniel prefer to fast instead of celebrating unleavened bread in Daniel 10, 1-4? If all the feasts are supposed to be kept wherever you live, then why did the tribes have to go up to Jerusalem in 2 Chronicles 30? If the feasts are to be done wherever you live, why did Paul have to go up to Jerusalem in Acts 18:21? Why does Deuteronomy 16 say you must not celebrate the Passover but in the place where Jehovah has put his name? Is your congregation or synagogue the physical place where Jehovah has put his name? Is Yeshua a place, Makaum in Hebrew, or is he a person? Why is there no story in the Old Testament of people celebrating Yom Kippur or Sukkot without the land of Israel? Why is there no prophecy that says that Israel celebrates the feasts in the profane lands of his exile? Why did Joshua have to wait until he entered the land of Canaan to circumcise the Israelites and then be able to celebrate the Passover? Why didn't he celebrate it during the wilderness journey? And why didn't he circumcise people before in the wilderness? Was Joshua cut from his people for disobeying what Leviticus 23 says? Does the Bible say that people will be judged for not making the feasts? Or does it say that Torah keepers will be judged because of lying, stealing, fornicating, adulterating, and coveting? I hope this analysis is sufficient to show that it is not necessary to keep celebrating the feasts, since the most important points have been addressed. Nothing happens if we want to study them. On the contrary, I always invite people to study them in great detail because Leviticus 23 reveals a lot about the prophecy. Please join us at www.straightesthegate.net.